Hi, my name is Christina.
Hi, my name is Lucas.
Hello, my name is Sarah.
And my name is Hadjer.
It's April 12 in Montreal, and you're listening to 8-Bit Education, where we discuss all things media and tech in education. We're here today to talk to you about different learning methods and strategies to incorporate in your own practice and explain their importance to you, future teachers. Today, we'll be focusing on the gamification of learning. According to the University of Waterloo, gamification is the integration of video game elements like point systems, leaderboard, badges, or other elements related to games into conventional learning activities in order to increase engagement and motivation. This is very different from what we know as game-based learning, which entails creating educational activities where the elements and principles of games are integrated directly into the learning experience. A simple example of the gamification of learning phenomenon would be when we had to program an educational activity on the platform Scratch. I know a lot of us in the class had different opinions on this project, so I throw the following question out to you all. Have you ever personally experienced this in your learning journey?
Yes, I've had some experiences with gamification, albeit in a very rudimentary way. In elementary school, the teacher would award us with stickers if we behaved properly. The teacher would also assign us a certain face. So depending on your behavior, you either got a happy face, a neutral face, or a sad, angry face. Technology and games were never used beyond going to the computer lab for a period to play educational games.
My experience was slightly similar to yours, Lucas. We never really had technology, much less video games, be incorporated into the curriculum in one way or another. It was at most a game of Kahoot or a net math assignment, or the gaming type online platforms. Gamified aspects, like you would think of them today, weren't really something we noticed back then. Everything was physical and rarely ever technology based. The Scratch assignment Christina mentioned was definitely a challenge because this time, instead of being the player, we had to be the maker. It wasn't as easy to code an educative video as I previously thought, so it makes sense why my teachers, who weren't required to know anything beyond the bare minimum about technology at the time, weren't really including gamification in their teaching techniques.
Listening to your experiences, I can relate to both of you. Growing up, gamification of education wasn't a prominent feature in my learning journey. Occasionally, my teachers would use the interactive whiteboard to engage us with a quiz game. We would also go from time to time to the computer lab to play a game. So I have to say that technology was mostly used as a supplement or time filler rather than using it as a tool to test and keep track of our progress.
For me, the first example which comes to mind was in fourth grade, where I had to read, watch a movie, and play a video game based on the story of a series of unfortunate events. I remember the game kept me interesting because of the point system my teacher created, which would keep me motivated to unlock new levels. And that said, what do you all think about this? Do you think it is positive or negative thing that teachers are incorporating this more and more into their lesson plans?
I definitely think it's a good thing. I would even say it's now essential. From a perspective of introducing video games to curriculum, we should note that while most games are not necessarily made to cater to everybody, perhaps particularly not non-neurotypical individuals, they can still provide an entirely new way of learning that gets students directly engaged with the content and fully immerse themselves in their learning experience. Like was the case for you, Christina. Education science researchers Adupat and colleagues state that by engaging students in hands-on experiences and reflections, they are better able to connect theories and knowledge learned in the classroom to real-world situations. Gamification to me seems like a winning strategy to combine innovative technology, education, and fun all together.
I agree with you, Sarah. Gamification introduces fun, competition, and rewards into the learning process. It is indeed essential since technology is only evolving and younger generations are getting more and more familiar with it. By incorporating points, levels, or badges, teachers can capture their students' attention easily. Gamification can also help with retaining information, as Sidsman, a professor at the University of Colorado, notes that gamification education also helps self-efficacy and boosts knowledge retention. This relates mostly to the first level of Bloom's taxonomy, which involves the recall of specifics and universals, the recall of methods and processes, or the recall of a pattern, structure, or setting. Therefore, gamified learning activities can include quizzes or trivia games that push students to remember specific facts. So, gamification provides opportunities for students to engage with learning material from remembering to creating.
While some games only offer a linear pattern to their gameplay, many more are choice-based, and the impact of the player's decisions can be immediately felt. We often tend to think of gamification in learning as a tool to get students engaged with what is considered classic education, that is, subjects like math, science, and others. While that's true, it is not often mentioned that games can teach how to be a better citizen and a better individual, capable of making calculated and wise choices that benefit them and better society as a whole. Decision-based games can be used to teach topics regarding social justice, critical thinking, social skills, philosophy, and many more. They put the player in the position of a character that has to make impactful, decisive choices that allow students to see the potential consequences, good or bad, to the choices they make, without having an impact on the real world, something that traditional teaching just can't do. Game developer Chris Alexander states that effective instruction merges theory and practice. He uses the mechanic of the game to teach students complex subjects like history, sexism, racism, corporate culture, and tokenism.
Now, on another set of ideas, a big advantage of gamification in learning is its ability to personalize learning experiences for each student. Through games, teachers can tailor their content to match different needs and paces of students. For example, I could see myself choosing a platform where students progress at their own speed and focus on areas where they need more practice. Now that I reflect on it, I realize it's important to know that not all students work at the same pace. This can relate to the SAMR model at the augmentation level, which is where technology is again directly substituted for a traditional tool or method, but with significant enhancements to the student experience. Therefore, using a personalized learning platform instead of traditional worksheets represents this level, and it can help with efficiency.
These are all great points you're all bringing up. Many researchers have had the exact question Sarah brought up. Some have mentioned the negative impact that game design can have, more specifically leaderboards, which are associated to negative effects such as loss of performance and undesired behaviors. Others have pointed out the fact that it increases students' motivation to study as it can increase their grades. This said, do you think you might use this tool in your future practices?
I could definitely see myself using gamification. One way in which I would implement it is by taking inspiration from Duolingo. In Duolingo, users are rewarded with badges and points for answering questions correctly and completing daily activities. I could incorporate a similar type of activity where kids would have to answer an activity sheet after every class. To make it more personalized, students would have the option of demonstrating their knowledge in multiple ways. This is inspired by Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences and takes into account the strengths of each student. Students will be rewarded regardless of how they choose to approach the assignment. Students might not have the tools to approach the problem in a different way. A potential solution to this could be a virtual reality, such as the WS LearnSpace 3D. A study by Rucker and Junkert used a simulation of a school campus in a way that allowed for the expression of all 9 intelligences. In this virtual reality, students are not limited and can solve problems in various ways. For example, students who are high in interpersonal intelligence can collaborate with others anywhere at any time.
I think I would absolutely use gamification in my teaching, as this method can be a motivating and exciting way to introduce students to classroom material. So many games have been specifically created for educational purposes, such as Variant Limits, an immersive calculus game, Kerbal Space Program for physics and astronomy, UBSim to test nursing students' critical skills, and many others.
Absolutely. Reflecting on your points, I agree that incorporating gamification into teaching can be a powerful way to engage students and enhance learning outcomes. I personally would use gamification in my classroom because students are already familiar with this environment. This would then capture their attention for an extended period of time. However, it's crucial as future teachers to be careful and to choose video games that align with our learning objectives and the curriculum, as it could lead to consequences such as loss of performance. It is important to ensure the game is monitored and accessible for those challenged with hearing problems, for example, by putting captions on.
Well, this wraps up today's episode. We talked about many things, from our thoughts to how they relate to different learning models to how they could be incorporated into classrooms. Thank you for listening, and be sure to tune in next week where we'll be talking about the effects of social media on mental health.